Okay, we are on air, Sia. So, welcome everybody if you are watching this via the Google Plus page. My name is Lisa Chambers, and I run the training section of the Knowledge Foundation. And I am here today with Siyabonga Africa, who's going to do us a wonderful Skillshare on user experience, which is very important for anybody wanting to build any kind of application to make sure that it's actually functional and usable and coincidentally sometimes looks nice. So I'm going to stop talking and hand over to Sia. I will also be the one facilitating any questions. So if anybody has any questions, you can either tweet them directly at School of Data, or you can post them on the Google Plus page. And I will post them. I will bring them back into Sia. So Sia, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Lucy. Hello, everybody. I'm Sia Africa, as Lucy just said. Broadcasting from South Africa, Johannesburg, which is now cloudy and dreary instead of summery and sunny like it should be. But yeah, I'm here to share on usability, user experience design, and I'm going to jump into my slides. So bear with me as I switch to my screen. So yeah, I was pretty taken aback when I saw the tweets which said the user experience design of data, because I personally think user experience design is in everything. Please tell me if everything is still going. But yeah, so here we go. The user experience design of everything. To kick things off, I wanted to start with a quote from Bill Buxton, who's the author of Sketching User Experiences. The experience is about how we get there, not the landing place, which I think is very important when it comes to user experience design. Most of the time, whenever we encounter a project, we tend to think, oh, I just want to build an app, or whatever the case may be, which is, the final place. But, getting from A to B is more important than actually just, the B, the final product. You need to understand what the experience is. So I really like this quote. The experience is about how we get there, not the landing place. So I quickly wanted us to just check out this one video that I saw the other day, and I think it's really poignant to. Has everyone loaded up the video? I shared the link earlier.
I will also tweet out the link again. So if you want to follow along, it's also linked on the Google Plus page, and I'll put it in the chat. So we'll have a three-pronged attack, and hopefully people will get it.
Oops, sorry, I lost the screen. So maybe I should put it on my screen here. I hope that's not gonna.
Hello, you must be the new hire. I'm glad we finally have a user experience person at the company.
Thank you. I am eager to get started.
That's good. We value enthusiasm here at the company, and we need a better user experience.
Well then, I'd like to tell you about what I can do. And you can guide me by telling me what to focus on. Sound good?
Sure.
I recommend starting by examining the user experience of our products.
Okay, fine.
And then talk to some customers to learn about their needs and tasks.
Fine. Wait. No, you can't talk to customers.
Talking to customers is important to focus product requirements on user tasks.
You aren't allowed to talk to customers. Only salespeople talk to customers.
Okay. Well then, I can start with a usability assessment.
No, don't do that.
Can you tell me why?
Our products do not have any problems. Customers are just stupid and broke, which explains our poor sales numbers. It's just the economy.
Okay, I will move directly to design user interfaces for you.
Our developers designed the user interfaces today, and we can't change our development process. So no, you won't.
I am experienced in brand strategy and have proven success increasing sales.
My marketing department owns the brand.
Do you have any suggestions for work direction then?
You are supposed to tell us what you can do. I mean, why the fuck are we paying you so much money?
I was hired to improve our products and increase sales so we make more money. You said yourself that sales have been poor.
I don't give a shit.
You don't give a shit?
I don't give a shit.
Ah,
Not one tiny little piece of shit from the dog's puckered asshole. Well then, now go back to your cubicle and do the user experience that we need.
but I am still confused.
Don't be a whiner. You're not another fucking whiner, are you? But remember, we value enthusiasm, and always put our customers first.
Right. What have I gotten myself into?
Cool. All right. So I don't know if you guys were able to watch that. I saw that video at a conference I went to recently, and it really touches on a lot of things and a lot of experiences I've had in going into organizations and saying, you know, I can do user experience design for them, you know, and you know they try to silo things. They'll say, if you want to do product testing or you want to do market research, then they'll say, no, that's a marketing process. Or you want to do user interface design, they say, no, that's a development process. And the thing is that user experience design kind of cuts across all those disciplines. It's not exactly something that you can put in one silo and say that do user experience design and it's, you know, in the air. So in any case, I wanted to get a formal definition of this, and I went to our good friend Wikipedia. User experience design, as they define it, is the process of enhancing customer, and I'll tell you why I did a strike through there, satisfaction and loyalty by improving the usability, ease of, sorry, what's going on? Sorry, Lucy, are we still there?
Yeah, we're all fine. Just ignore the ignore Skype.
Okay, sorry.
Don't worry.
Okay. By enhancing customer or satisfaction and loyalty by improving the usability, ease of use, and pleasure provided in the interaction between the customer and the product. Now, the reason why I did a strike through customer, and I should have done it again in the second time they mentioned it, is because I don't really see people who use your products as customers. Or, you know, they essentially, to me, they are users. You know, whether, you know, they buy something from you or are subscribers to something that you created, they are users at the end of the day because they use your products, they use your design. Saying that they're a customer, to me, it kind of implies a financial sort of transactionary relationship, and I think, you know, we need to get that out. You know, like, it's not, I mean, to me, it's not part of UXD. It's, you know, that's something else. To me, it's user satisfaction and loyalty between the user and the product. So in any case, user experience design has a very long history, which, you know, can trace its roots back to the 1900s, in the age of machinery, as I call it. This is the machine era of the early 1900s, and early UX there was meant to cut time and increase efficiency in the assembly lines and product lines. Along the way, it helped shape and ease the speed of use of the telegram and telegraph, and it later found itself in fields of ergonomics and designing products that, you know, helped humans work better, like ergonomic chairs. One of the earliest examples of a user experience designer is Walt Disney, as you see him here. He was able to essentially extend the experience of a physical product to making a service evoke emotion. And how do I describe that? Well, I don't know. Have any of you been to Disney World? No, Disneyland. Sorry, Disney World is in California. Disneyland is in Florida. This picture was taken. Sorry.
I said I've been to Disneyland.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I have.
Have you? Ah, lucky you. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to go there one of these days. In any case, this is an image taken from the entrance of Disneyland, looking down the main street to the castle at the end of the street. And the second image is from the castle looking back at the entrance, which is that building in the center of the picture there. Now, why does it look as though from the entrance to the castle, it's a very long way off, whereas from the castle to the entrance, it's actually a shorter way? What happened there is that the guys who did the Disney Imagineering, as they call it, or Disney design, or Disneyland design, what they did is that they designed the buildings in such a way that even though it looks as though they've got 2 to 3 stories on them, they're actually shorter than what they really are physically. So essentially what they did is force your perspective to turn what essentially is a very short street and small area of land into a huge area of land. I mean, it creates this foreboding emotion that you're in a kingdom. You're not in just an amusement park. You're actually somewhere that is far away from the U.S. It's it's huge. And to me, in the article that I read about this, they called it hacking your brain. I call it good user experience design. Moving on, moving on to the age of computing, and here we have the Xerox PAC, which was the original PC, which included a graphical user interface and new interaction design, which basically was done through a keyboard and mouse, or it added a keyboard and a mouse. And you see the evolution of user experience design just continuing on there. And the first guy to actually have the title of user experience designer was Norman Donald, who worked at Apple Inc. A bit of a while back. And in 1995, he was essentially the user experience architect of the company. And as we know, Apple does really great design with their products. And he says here, user-centered design means working with all your users throughout the project. And I think that's a major point that we'll see continuing on. And towards the beginning of the 21st century, in 2005, we have Jared M. Spool, who came up with the concept of the age of experience. So we went from the age of machinery right through to the age of computing, and now we're in the age of experience. And what that means is essentially now we're in a time where companies that reign supreme have great holistic user experiences. So think Apple, think Amazon, Google. All these companies tend to focus on user-centered design in their products, in their interactions with people. The foundation of user experience design. So here I have a quote by Jesse James Garrett, who's written some really great books. I'll add a slide with the resources I used and send it out to the group later on. But he says user-centered design means understanding behave and incorporating that understanding into every aspect of your process. Now, this is one of the major foundations of user experience design, user-centered design, that is, and we'll shorten it to UCD. So UCD, essentially, it's a process in which the needs, wants, and limitations of users of a product are given extensive attention at each stage of the design process. So whether you are doing research, whether you're doing prototyping, whether you're doing conceptualization, you have the end user in the back of your mind as you're doing these tasks. It answers questions about their tasks and goals and uses the findings to help in development and in design. And we'll see later on when I guide you through a user experience design project how that factors in. For example, the design of a website or app, user-centered design answers the following questions. Who are the users? What are the users' tasks and goals? What is their experience levels? What functions or information are needed for the users? And how do users think the product should work? It basically uses the answers that are gained from these questions to inspire product design and drive product development. Excuse me for the typo there. And at the center of this, we use personas. And a persona is basically a behavioral representation of the user type. So, it basically is an example of the kind of person who'll be using your app or product, or whatever the case may be. And we'll take this persona through essentially a story of the design, or essentially a user journey. And as I mentioned before, user experience design transcends a number of disciplines, from content strategy to information architecture, graphic design, coding, markup language, SEO, SEM, interaction design. Like how in the video that guy was talking about, I'd like to do a bit of research, I'd like to do maybe some UI design. That's what user experience design encompasses. It touches on so many disciplines, and a person can come in with backgrounds in all these disciplines and become a user experience designer, which is why I actually really like it as a career, as the kind of job that I do. The importance of UX. So here's another quote from our friend Jared M. Spool, who spoke about the age of experience. Intuitive design is how we give the user new superpowers, and I like that because we're trying to empower our users at the end of the day to be able to use what we build for them. No longer are we just like building and expecting them to use the products that we're churning out. We expect them to actually derive some sort of usability and utility from it. And here's a picture of the guy. I wish I could get a better one because this makes him look like Jabba the Hutt, but it's the only one I could find that was big enough. Jared Ebspool also spoke about the features of great user experience design, and these are the top 3. It's invisible, so you don't really see it, on the outside. It's cultural, so people are able to come to it from their different perspectives, and it's multidisciplinary, meaning that you can put in UX design from the coding aspects through to your research, your conceptualization, as I mentioned before. They also extend beyond, UX design also extends beyond the interface of the product. So don't think of just, the markup that you're gonna put up. It's, beyond that. It can even go into the storefront. And one of the great examples of that is Apple. Now, I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure a lot of us have bought Apple products. In fact, I'm broadcasting this from my MacBook Pro. And if you go to Apple, your experience with them is from the Genius Bar, which is, the brick and mortar store, right through to actually, using your Mac product. So if you bought an iPod, you would, talk to the guy at the Genius Bar, and he'll tell you, how to use it, how to set it up. Then you go home, and then you actually connect it to your computer or whatnot. It connects to iTunes, and that experience has been basically designed from the front to back, and that is good user experience design. So in all of this, talking about the roots of it and the importance of good user experience design, how do we actually, use it in our daily, daily projects? And what I say is, when in doubt, turn to your principles. So now, the framework for user experience design that I'll be taking you through was developed by this man here, Professor Marty Siegel from the Indiana University School of Informatics and Computing, where I studied in between 2009 and 2011. And the principles framework is something that we used in our HCID, that's Human-Computer Interface Design class. Essentially, the principles framework can be broken down into the following components. P, predispositions. R, your research. IN is your insights. C, these are this is a concept or concept systems, or to me, what I call it is the core. Then P, prototypes. And then S, strategy. You can forget about the little I, little N, and the little LE. Otherwise it'll be which I don't know how to say out loud, but principles essentially is what I use whenever I do a user experience design project. And the thing to remember about the principles is that it's not really a process, it's a framework. And by saying framework, essentially it's how you explain your design. So yes, it can be used linearly, so you can go from your predispositions right through your strategy, but it's a strategy, and then go back to your predispositions and ask yourself, were my predispositions right? Or I can go from my strategy back to my research, or from my prototyping to my insights, and you just keep going backwards and forwards, until you actually get to your final design. So going through the principles framework, we start with the predispositions. So predispositions themselves are axioms, claims, assumptions. So for example, if I'm working on a distance learning project, one of the predispositions I've come up with is that everyone is entitled to an education. And the reason why we come up with predispositions first is that we put them in the beginning of the design explanation, and so that we can make sure that all points of views are represented. Now, a few months back at this point, in September, Hannah and I hosted the first School of Data workshop for Media Monitoring Africa and the Con in Johannesburg. And when I mentioned predispositions, one of the participants, Lloyd Gedger from the Con, he kind of stood up and was like, journalists do not make assumptions. And I was like, well, we all have our initial thoughts of a project. We all have our biases and our own claims and our own hypotheses when we're presented with something, whether it is, a story, or whether it is an idea that we're supposed to flesh out into a project. And so it's good to kind of put these down in the beginning so that you can actually work through them. Now, the second component is research. And so, and to, in terms of the principles framework, designs need to be based on an understanding of existing knowledge, and it kind of helps to ground whatever you're doing in knowledge, in research that's been done before. And there are three types of research here. There's literature, so going on Wikipedia, looking for published articles, looking for maybe even projects that have been done before and that are published in the public domain or within your organization. The second are observations, and this is actually you getting physically out there, maybe doing a shadow study, like how this woman here is looking at how this guy is using the application or using the prototype on the screen. And then the third one is a bit more difficult to explain. This is collections. So collections is the gathering of evidence from popular culture of things that are inspirational or whimsical. So think of it as inspirational research. And one of the best examples of this is the EDO design group, and they do great user experience design. And what they do is they collect all the bits and pieces of research that they've done into a tick box. And this is a combination of parts and material, library, and databases and websites and organizations. It allows them to archive their wide array of experiences and gain from this work and share it across the entire organization, which has many offices across the world. So bits and pieces of things that they found which have helped them, to come up with a really cool design idea. And within research, I tend to kind of put in my personas. And as I said before, personas are, essentially it's your best guess at the kind of person who's going to be using your product and why. And if you look at this example here, what we did is, it was a quick sketch up of a persona, on Post-its. And we were just like putting in a few little details of what their name is, their age, where they live, why they would be using the app itself. Those kinds of factors help you come up with good personas into insights. And so an insight is an interpretation of research which may identify a problem with an existing situation or a version of something better. So going back to your predispositions, and what you came into the project with, and you do your research, and then you find maybe either your predisposition was backed up, so your initial claim is backed up, or it was refuted, which tends to happen a lot more of the time. And so knowing that, knowing from that grounded research that maybe your predisposition is not right, then you can come up with an insight that will help you move on. So going back to the example of an educational distance educational project, we could say that from our research, we need to make education accessible to everyone. And so it's a good idea to move a physical campus into the community. This is an example of an insight, by the way, and there are many more insights. And then we go into concept systems, and the core. I tend to say the core for me because the core of your design essentially it's that main idea that you're going with, And if we look here at the image that I just posted in here, it's, with the app that we're building, I asked the question, what are we building? And your core is essentially that statement, And for the example here, it's a two-part visualization of protest and voting data in the Western Cape. And that essentially is just a statement that you stick with when you proceed along the principles framework, and it will help you further along design your final project. And then we get into the prototyping stage, which is to me the fun part. This is where you actually bust out some paper and pens and you start like sketching up the wildest ideas. And here it's a method of expressing a concept or systems of concepts before production. And it helps to actually really prototype these things, because you don't want to get into a point where you've coded up something and then you realize that it's going against all your research and all your insights. So rather start, doing a bit of prototyping, and there are three types again. You have your exploration, so these are paper prototypes like the one I've posted here, and this is just a low fidelity SketchUp. Then the second is appearance, and these are higher fidelity prototypes, so Photoshop design. So here you're adding color, you're adding buttons, you're adding much more interaction elements. And then the third are minimal viable products, MVPs, that are functional. So this will essentially be a prototype or a first iteration of your final project, but not something that you're going to ship to market. It's just a prototype. And then finally, we have strategies, and this is the implementation plan for your concept systems or your prototypes. And Once again, there's three types. You have enterprise strategies. So these will assess the market viability of the idea that you came up with. And then you have the technical strategies. So this assesses the technical feasibility. So whether an app will be on the iTunes, the iStore, or whether it'll be on the Android store, or whether you got to do a combination of both, or maybe you got to go simply for a full-on HTML5 solution. And then social strategies, these have a much more bigger cultural impact, and they predict the social impact of your idea. So it could be that what you're designing for is something that will change human behavior, at a social point, like, getting people to donate money or getting people to change their perspectives on an issue using data. And so that essentially is the principles framework. It's a simple framework that guides you along the design process and takes you from the beginning to the end. But at the same time, it's not a process. It's a framework, and you can start at any point. You could have a prototype, and start at your prototypes and maybe go back to predispositions, or just do a little research, just see if your prototype will work, and maybe then jump straight into your strategy. So here you are using RMPNS instead of just PRINCPS, and that's how I normally go through a design process. But at the end of the day, user experience design is all about taking the sum total of all those elements in the design process, from thinking about user-centered design, using prototypes, using your research, using your personas, and essentially coming through with a holistic user experience that will benefit your users and bring to them some really greater utility. And I hope I didn't speed through that, but that's my Skillshare on user experience design. Thank you.
That's excellent, Sia. I have a question for you. Sorry for the dog.
Go ahead.
You might have seen my puppy insert herself. Oh, she's here again. There she is.
I didn't see her dog. Sorry, I was on my screen.
She's just disappeared, but she'll probably come back. She really likes talking to people on the internet.
Okay.
Yes, I guess something that's been interesting for me for a while, because I don't really understand it, and you haven't mentioned it. So if it's not something that you're interested in or know about, don't worry. But design thinking.
Yes.
And I'm kind of interested. I'm very interested in the concept of design thinking, but I also don't know what's different about it to what you're suggesting, or other approaches to getting information out of users, things like user stories or bits and pieces. So I just wondered whether you knew a bit more about the different approaches, and whether there are any things that people should take into account before picking one of them.
Well, design thinking, I mean, there's so many so many acronyms, and there's so many terms within user experience design itself, and design thinking is one of them. And I tend to kind of tie that with user-centered design. So always thinking about your user at every step of the way is a huge one, and that's where personas come in and creating user journeys. So looking at whatever you're building and thinking, okay, how is this going to be used? How is this going to provide any utility? And one of my initial meetings with Marty Siegel, the guy who taught me the principles framework, was at my first day at IU, and so I was trying to convince him to let me into his class because I was in a different school altogether. And so he pointed to a teapot to me, and he was like, "Could you guess the design thinking behind this?" I was like, "What do you think? What are you talking about? I have no fucking idea what, excuse my language, what design thinking is here." And he was like, "Well, look at all the elements of the teapot, from the handle through to the spout, and think about what the creators of this teapot had to, essentially take into consideration. If they made the handle any shorter, because maybe that would look, much more artistically better, then you're going to get a whole lot of trade-offs and affordances. Your affordance would be, a much better, a much more nicer looking teapot, But the trade-off is that, someone with big hands might struggle with, holding this teapot. Or if you shorten the snout, or if you change the color, it might actually be something that is off-putting. So design thinking essentially is looking at all the elements of an actual product and saying, what are the trade-offs, what are the benefits, and how will this actually impact on my users at the end of the day? I don't know if I answered your question there.
That's an excellent answer. Yes, I've just been. It's very hot, certainly in Europe as a topic right now, and so I was just trying to work out where it's kind of best to put energy and learn about. Hannah has.
Oh yes. So have you experienced better or worse ways to present UX design to clients? Sometimes it's hard to illustrate an interactive application when people cannot imagine the end output. I know there's probably not one perfect answer. Yeah, that is a really hard one. That's where prototyping really comes in. But at the same time, what I prefer using is user journeys. And I know that some people sing user journeys praises. Some people don't like them. But a user journey essentially is taking a persona that you created and creating a scenario where they're using your product. And for me, it helps create a narrative. So if I say persona A would first get to this application via these steps, and then once they get to the application, this and that will happen. And I feel as though adding narratives is one of the best ways of immersing clients into what you're doing in terms of the design of a product. And so that's why I kind of say we should actually think about adding in user journeys. I didn't add in slides about user journeys. I should have. I just felt as though I'd be going over time. I didn't think I'd have more time. But I say user journeys are one of the best ways of presenting UX design to clients.
Could you just give a quick example of what a user journey might be for people that haven't heard of them before?
Okay, so a user journey in terms of the principles framework, when you get to creating your personas and you get into the strategy point. So imagine if one of your personas is Kennedy. Kennedy is 22 years old. He's a student and he owns an iPhone 6. And you want him to go to your web app that sells sneakers. So user journey will take persona Kennedy, and we'll say that the steps that he will get to the app is firstly through social media, and then when he gets to the app itself, he then will be presented with the initial user interface, which will inform him about the actual app itself and what he can purchase from there. And then the next user interface will be a collection of the sneakers that he can buy. And then the second will be the actual e-commerce front where he can actually pick and pay for it. And then the end user interface will be the checkout. And then the next interaction will be beyond the sale into support and other interactions. So it's just a whole narrative. It's like Kennedy gets to our app, Kennedy uses our app, Kennedy is further interacted with via these other channels such as social media, email, phone support.
Excellent. And I mean, from my limited experience of doing user experience, I do have probably one anecdote to share, which is I think a similar setup to what you had, where you were drawing things on paper first and kind of saying this might be how it pans out. We have historically used a tool called Balsamic.
Yes.
I guess that it does a similar thing, but Balsamic is kind of a useful tool, and it has horrible fonts all over it. But that in turn, I think, is kind of part of the idea, because one of the things that we certainly found was that if we presented clients too early with a set of beautiful looking mock-ups, they'd obsess over details that we didn't want them to obsess over. They'd obsess over the buttons. They'd obsess over that they wanted pictures to be bigger, rather than thinking about actually what the things on the page were and how people might interact with them. So the choice of the very limiting ugly fonts was deliberate, just to get people to think about the designs on the page, and we kind of had to make that quite explicit to them that we were deliberately not showing them a mock-up so that they would think about how people were going to interact with it. So that's my limited that's my limited experience.
You know, it's also in Marty's class we were given a bunch of design problems to go through, and the one was, you know, how do we get people to walk more, which is very abstract. How do you get people to walk more? At the end of the day, my group, what we did is that we actually looked at dogs and getting people to be who tend to be emotionally invested in their pets to actually walk more by walking their dogs more, because dogs need exercise. And creating that user journey was, you know, what kind of made our product in the end much more compelling, because we didn't really focus on, you know, like the buttons and all these nice little fancy things, which is part of you know, the design, but, you know, focusing on the entire experience is key. You know, like, how are they going to derive any utility out of this? And focusing on, you know, minute things like, you know, the color of a button, which does have some emotional attachment or some emotional value, I think just really skews away from the overall picture. You could say, for want of a nail, the horse was lost, that kind of thing. But yeah, you know, it's me. It's all about the overall experience, not just, you know, the tiny details. Nonetheless, yeah. But yeah, that's it. That's yeah. Sorry, I had like a whole lot of Red Bull, so I'm really stuttering now.
I drank a lot of coffee today as well. I wouldn't worry about it. I guess I have one. I guess I have one final question, which might serve quite as a nice wrap up for the entire thing.
Yes.
I'm really happy that you didn't focus on data. I'm really happy that you focused on user experience more generally.
Thank you. I was like, I was a bit worried.
No. I think that's excellent, and I think the reason that it's excellent in my mind is to kind of avoid tech solutionism in some regards. So I mean, what I mean when I say tech solutionism is I think that quite often people think that a website is going to cure everything. And that's going to be the way forward. But certainly from my limited experience talking to people about design thinking and everything, and thinking about what the ways are that you can actually get to the root of what people's problems are, there might quite often be a solution which has nothing to do with a website, and in fact, that might be totally the wrong way to go. So thank you so much for not focusing on just data.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. What I totally like about the principles framework as well is that it's very technology agnostic, and I tend to be also that. I know when I'm presented with projects, people tend to think, oh, we're gonna make an app, and I'm like, no, that's not exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna focus on, you know, yes, fixing a problem, or, you know, designing for you know, a problem set, as opposed to, you know, saying that, you know, we're going to make an app, because that, you know, is that kind of determines your endpoints without giving room to be flexible. And thank you for that, actually. And I'm going to sing Hannah's praises here, because she just finished working on a set of posters for Black Sash, and this was for a data project, you know. And, you know, you'd think data project means data visualization on an app, and it's like, no, you can actually accomplish the same thing with a paper solution, which is a poster. So thank you so much for raising that point, and that is exactly what I meant. That's what I was hoping people get out of in terms of using the principles framework. It's not about, especially user experience design, it's not about, you know, creating technological solutions. It's about creating solutions.
Excellent. Well, I think that sounds like an excellent note to end on, and I think South Africa is clearly the place to watch for people that have got their head round this.
Thank you.
So thank you both to Hannah for her excellent questions, and to you, Sia, for sharing and putting all of the effort into putting the presentation together.
Yeah, I'll clean up a little bit more, and I'll send it through to you, and yeah, if you can distribute it, that'll be great.
Brilliant. Yes, it will be posted on the Google Plus page. We'll also tweet it from the School of Data account, and maybe put it on our SlideShare if you send me the raw version. Actually, I have the raw version, so it's great. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Great stuff. Good, man.
Concise as well, which is even better.
Great.
Brilliant. Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.